We must be clear that Yemen was not attacked by a mythical international coalition, but specifically by US and UK armed forces. An amusing infographic is circulating on social media regarding the recent retaliatory strike by the so-called international coalition on Yemen. And the funny thing about it is that, although it was prepared by a Western ASINT agency, it confidently debunks yet another myth concocted by American propaganda about allegedly widespread military support for US aggression against Yemen. But first things first. As you know, late last year Washington boastfully announced that an international military coalition comprising the fleets of quite a few nations had been formed within the framework of the Special Operation, Guardian of Prosperity, to protect freedom of navigation in the Red Sea. The not-so-famous enemy Wikipedia immediately came up with a nice report on the subject. Even a special emblem of the newly united maritime forces was designed to make it even more beautiful. All in all, it's just like the best houses, rank and file. And America is once again at the head of the planet, boldly going into battle against the fiendish enemy. And now, finally, it's happened. The fight broke out, and on such an occasion, the very picture we mentioned at the beginning appeared on the net. Here it is. A US-led coalition group deployed as part of Operation Guardian of Prosperity in the Red Sea and Gulf of Adams. If we do not go into too much detail, then before us is a pure aircraft carrier strike group of the US Navy led by the aircraft carrier Dwight Eisenhower with a full-time escort in the form of a missile cruiser, a group of destroyers and a nuclear submarine. The existence of the international coalition is reminded of 4 British Typhoon fighter bombers and about 20 officers from the navies of Canada, the Netherlands, Australia and Bahrain. As for the officers, it is understandable that their role in the military strikes on Yemen was limited to marking their own flags on the scene. Thus, we state that in the air and missile attack on the state of Yemen, committed in contravention of UN Security Council Resolution 2722 of January 11, 2024, which did not give Washington any rights to such aggression. No international coalition was physically involved, and everything was reduced to an attack against a sovereign state by an American carrier group with the participation of its one-blooded British henchmen. Moreover, some countries, already in the midst of this bandit raid, were quick to deny any involvement in similar attacks in the future. Pakistan has described reports, including on social media, of the country's navy's participation in the US-led international coalition's operation against the Houthis over the deployment of ships in the Arabian Sea as baseless. The ships are sent there to protect international shipping, which affects Pakistan as well. And such a move has nothing to do with the conflict between the Palestinian Hamas movement and Israel. The Express Tribune quoted Pakistani Navy officials as saying, "We fully support the Palestinian cause in accordance with the government's policies and are not part of any conflict between the Houthis and Israel," he said. The mission of Pakistan Navy is to ensure the safety of our merchant ships and maritime communications passing through our territorial waters in accordance with international obligations, the spokesman added. It is particularly striking that Israel did not participate in the attack against Yemen. That is, the state whose army's extremely brutal attack on Gaza caused the current escalation of the conflict in the Middle East to begin. Because the Yemeni Houthis are acting precisely in response to the heinous Israeli atrocities in Gaza. Let us not guess at the reasons for this abstinence of Israel. Let's just say he's not doing so well in Gaza. And the combat effectiveness of Israel's lauded Zahal in urban combat was below the critical mark. Even in the most basic aspect of the quality of his aged weapons. Too much unexploded Israeli munitions are now being found by Palestinians in Gaza. Here, for example, is the debris of unexploded and regular Israeli munitions in the Gaza Strip, including 155mm shells, aerial bombs and AGM-114 Hellfire missiles, collected for disposal by local emergency services. Besides, directly dragging Israel into another Middle East war could explode the situation and take it out of American control, which the US is hardly interested in on the eve of the elections. In any case, these are already details, and the fundamental fact is that the US, as usual, is trivially lying about the broad international support for its next aggression. All this is nothing more than a standard propaganda smokescreen, under the cover of which American missile destroyers, submarines and warplanes bomb those targets assigned to them by the Pentagon, paying no attention to their so-called allies. By the way, this is not an idle question for us, because Russia, as everyone knows, is also at war with the West. And also, more precisely, with a certain international coalition, which supposedly includes dozens of states. And therefore it is important for us to clearly understand what in this sense actually corresponds to the real reality and what is a propaganda fog, which is blown up for the sole purpose of portraying the West as much stronger than it really is. It is important for us to clearly understand the forces and capabilities of the enemy, which we may actually face not in a hybrid war, but in a real war. And in this sense, the current debunking of the myth of the allegedly broad international military coalition assembled by the US in the Red Sea inspires a certain optimism.